This is the 415ers podcast brought to you by the Odyssey Sports Podcast Network, along with 95.7 The Game, Marc, Grandi, Evan Giddings. Appreciate you listening, downloading, rating, subscribing. 3 episodes a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Okay, so we've talked about the quarterbacks individually, but of course, both will probably, I would assume both would be on the market next year. I think the odds of that are pretty good. So if we're looking at the quarterback carousel, which has essentially begun and began the moment, honestly, Jimmy Garoppolo got hurt, then you're also looking at, I think, the 4 quarterbacks, but really 3 that are out there that you would want: Jimmy Garoppolo and Derek Carr. And then if someone was able to pry Lamar Jackson away from Baltimore, technically he's a free agent, that would be a 4th. And then that'd be a 3rd. And then Tom Brady is the 4th. And excuse Lamar Jackson from the conversation. I personally think Baltimore would be stupid not to re-sign him, or at least do everything they can to. But when we talk about quarterbacks that it feels the same, like, I don't really know which one I'd rather have. There are a few teams this offseason that are going to have to make that decision. And just going down the list of teams, the New York Jets are obviously one of them. That's a team that's been linked to Jimmy Garoppolo via Robert Saleh. We're looking at I can't imagine the Steelers would move off of Kenny Pickett this early, but who knows? Maybe they want to bring in a more seasoned quarterback to try and elevate a roster that has been decimated by injury this year and is still somehow approaching 500. You're looking at, I don't know, maybe a Tennessee team. I know that they're invested in Ryan Tannehill, but I'm not sure how far that goes. You look at Indianapolis is probably the next most likely one to need a quarterback. And then down the line in the NFC, you're looking at the Atlanta Falcons. You're looking at maybe the New Orleans Saints, and that's kind of where the train stops for me, Marc. But it does seem like there's going to be a few teams, and actually quite a few teams, more than I realized, that will be in need of a starting quarterback this year. Do you think those 3 guys, being Brady, Garoppolo, and Carr, are going to be highly sought after?
I can't see why they wouldn't be in there's a few top quarterbacks expected to be, in the draft as well this year,
Yeah,
but
good call.
it's a relatively, it's not like nearly as I don't know, anticipated as the 2020 draft was, or excuse me, the 2021 draft was, when Trey Lance was drafted 3rd overall along with Trevor Lawrence and Zach Wilson and Justin Fields and Mac Jones. There are some, names up there that are expected to be, top picks, top 10 picks. But I think if you're a quarterback, or if you're a team looking for a quarterback, obviously, if you're in the top 5, you can go and select one. But if you're outside of that top 5 spot, you're probably looking not to the draft, and instead towards, the quarterbacks currently on rosters right now, like a Jimmy Garoppolo, a Derek Carr, a Tom Brady. You mentioned Lamar Jackson. If the Ravens let him walk, that's going to be really interesting to keep an eye on, because I think the Ravens are extremely upset with how the Browns handled the Deshaun Watson situation, because they gave him so much guaranteed money. And Lamar Jackson is just going to say, hey, I'm better than him, and he's getting all this guaranteed money. You got to at least match that for me. That's going to be interesting to watch. So I'm not sure we're going to have a resolution on that for quite a while, and it will probably go deep into the offseason. But beyond that, I agree with you. I think Derek Carr, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Tom Brady will be sought after, and I would be surprised if the Raiders do not try to make a hard push for Tom Brady. It seems like a Raiders
Wow.
move to try to do that. I'm not so sure that Tom Brady would want to do that, but it does seem like a Raiders move. All right, we've got Devontae Adams, we've got Max Crosby. Probably don't have Josh Jacobs anymore because he's a free agent, and by all accounts, it looks like he wants to get out. And why wouldn't he? I guess at this point. But I expect them to make a push for Tom Brady. We'll see if it happens. But I think those are 3 guys that will be sought after. They will have a handful of suitors. I'd be interested to see how the money plays out for Jimmy Garoppolo, because we had a lot of conversations about, 25 million, maybe up to 30 million before he got hurt. But now that he suffered another injury, that number probably takes a pretty big decline. And how many years does he get? I don't know. But if you're a team that has a good roster, maybe like the Saints, as you mentioned, that has a good roster, and maybe he's just a quarterback away to go after one of those guys, I would not be shocked. So I think there's going to be a big market for those three guys in particular this offseason.
Yeah, I'm with you, and I do think Garoppolo's injury pass is the only thing that would hurt him from being probably the highest paid or highest and longest paid of the three. But where I see them now after Garoppolo's injury and how probably a lot of teams see him, by the way, the closest of the teams that we named at the beginning of this segment needing a quarterback would be Indianapolis and Atlanta. They're currently 5th and 6th as far as draft position. Although right now in 4th is a team that Lamar Jackson is probably also very happy about, and that's the Denver Broncos, giving Russell Wilson $250 million for who knows what. So
Yeah.
maybe they decide that, hey, we'll try and see if we can stomach another year or two of Russell Wilson while C.J. Stroud or Bryce Young needs waits on the sidelines, and they try and figure it out. But here's how I see those three quarterbacks we're talking about. Jimmy Garoppolo is in a way kind of the safest play. Like, exactly what you're going to get as long as he's on the field. So to me, Jimmy Garoppolo would be a perfect, 2-year, $35 million candidate, and maybe even command more depending on which teams really want his services. Derek Carr is the one that I guess I would want, and you'd probably give the longest contract to, just based on his past. And then Tom Brady, he's an enigma. I totally can see, I'm with you. I can totally see him going to Las Vegas because he's the one that brings the show. And if you're we just talked about Allegiant Stadium being more about the glitz and the glam than the actual gridiron, then Tom Brady fits right into that. And if you could get him for kind of a similar cost to a Garoppolo, maybe less, because Tom Brady has been open to taking less money in the past to make sure he's got the roster he wants. And I mean, Las Vegas, sure, they might lose Josh Jacobs, but they acquired a few nice pieces this past off season coming off the playoffs that they were hoping to build off of, which is why moving off of Derek Carr immediately kind of makes very little to no sense, in my opinion. But if you can go out and get Tom Brady on a 1 or 2 year flyer, even if he's 45, 46, maybe that's a situation where if you're Las Vegas, you're saying, gosh, we were in so many close games this year. And what's the one thing that Tom Brady at least has done this season? His overall numbers haven't been great, but the one thing he can do is win you a game down the stretch. Maybe instead of 6-9, we're looking at 9-6 if we got Brady. So that to me is why Las Vegas makes the most sense for him.
I would never say Tom Brady is one to run from the fight, Evan, but I think the one reason why I don't think Tom Brady would go to the Raiders, and you just laid out reasons why. I know I said it. I think that the Raiders would be seeking out Tom Brady. Tom Brady, again, I don't think he's one to run from the fight, but he's also a smart competitor. Why would you ever willingly go into a division with Patrick Mahomes? The second best quarterback in that division, Justin Herbert. Why would you ever willingly go into that division?
Well, he did opt to go into the NFC South, which at the time had Drew Brees.
Okay, that's different than than a in their prime Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. I mean, when he went to New Orleans, what? Drew Brees had one more year? That was his last year in New Orleans?
Yeah, I mean, and in the regular season, the New Orleans Saints beat them twice. I mean, it was the Bucs that flipped the script in the playoffs. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
I don't know. I'm not saying Tom Brady has made a career of running away from great quarterbacks, and he certainly beat his fair share. I mean, he's the greatest quarterback of all time. But at this stage of his career, if he's still trying to win football games, which why else would he still be playing? I mean, he killed his marriage because he still wants to keep playing football. He wants to win, allegedly. He wants to win games. So I don't know why you would willingly make it more difficult on yourself by going to a division that you probably would never win.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I'm just not sure where else would probably be like what would check all the boxes. Okay, so I know we only have a couple of minutes left, and I do want to get our predictions out for this weekend's game, but I do think this is interesting, and it's something we're going to be talking about this entire offseason when it comes to quarterbacks and where they go. If you're a team that, or if you're a player that wants to move teams and go to a different location, of the teams that need a quarterback, which one would you prefer? I mean, there's honestly not a lot of great situations out there that, in my opinion, would be better than Las Vegas.
If I'm Tom Brady, I would be interested in New Orleans. I know we
Hmm.
just said that, but I mean they still have a really quality defense. Uh, there's some questions about their offense as well, but they've hit on some draft picks recently as well. I mean, Chris Olave is one of the better young receivers in the game. I know Alvin Kamara has some legal questions that has to play out before he makes his decision. But if I'm Tom Brady, I'd be interested in a place like New Orleans because I think they are a quarterback away from at least being good. And you know that division is probably still going to struggle for at least a few more years. Stay in the division, a place you know well. Maybe go to a slightly better overall team and see what happens. But I don't know. I just don't think he. I think he's too smart to willingly go to the AFC West right now, considering everyone else in that division.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, maybe he's also worried about Russell Wilson. Who knows? Uh, it is
uh,
interesting. It's crazy to think about, though. Jimmy Garoppolo, Derek Carr, and Tom Brady all essentially being potential guns for hire. Like, when have we ever thought about those three quarterbacks as hitmen or mercenaries on
yeah.
the free agent quarterback market? All right, Mark, let's get to the game itself. The 49ers enter the weekend currently, as we're recording this, as a 10-point favorite. The total that I saw was 42 points. So if you're looking at this game, I think we both expect the Niners to win. I kind of do think it's going to be a tricky game, though, just because of the extracurriculars. Like, it has nothing to do with what's going on the field. It has to do with the Raiders and the players that are playing for the Raiders that want to play, that want to be there, having something to prove, aka contracts for next season, potential suitors if you're, Jared Stidham, if you're, um, one of those other guys in a contract year. I do think the Niners handle business, but I do think that the Raiders also give them enough of a fight to cover. So I'll
Hmm.
take the 49ers 28-20. That is my prediction for this game. Over hits.
28-20. Wow, the over hits relatively easily too. Okay.
Hmm.
Interesting. 28-20 Niners come out on top. I also have the Niners winning this ball game. I do think they cover though, and the under just barely sneaks by. 27-13 is my final score prediction. Niners 27, Raiders 13. I think this is a walk in the park, relatively speaking. I think the Niners get a two-score lead in the first half. They don't need to play any of their stars that many snaps in the second half. They cruise to victory. Max Crosby will announce himself. He'll make a big play here and there, but the others on the defense simply not good enough for the Raiders. I know that there's been a lot of noise this week in practice about Deebo Samuel. He is up and practicing once again for the 49ers. I would be shocked if he plays. If he does play, it won't be that many snaps. I think the Niners should hold him out until the postseason starts. We'll see about that. I think the Niners just have too many weapons. They'll spread the ball around. No one's going to get that many touches. McCaffrey's certainly not going to come close to 25 carries like he did, or I guess more than 25 like he did against the Seahawks. He probably won't get 20 touches total, maybe 15 total touches. We'll see for McCaffrey. But I think it's going to be a workman-like day for the 49ers. They win by 2 scores, 27-13.
Okay. Yeah, no, I could totally see that. I do think that the Raiders will cover in a backdoor fashion.
Mm.
If the Niners scored 28 in the first half and then took their foot off the gas pedal and the Raiders scrummage enough points, I wouldn't be surprised.
That
And
Jarrett
also,
Stidham, huh? Backdoor
it's,
cover.
well, we talked about this before. There's a California golden bear waiting in the wings, and Chase Garbers might have the opportunity. Hey, I'm just saying, man, the Pac-12 at Cal, he was kind of known as a comeback kid. So I'm not saying he's going to beat the 49ers, but if Jared Stidham looks like utter garbanzo in the first, watch out for that golden bear in the second string.
Uh, a
That's a joke.
phrase I never thought I would ever hear. Chase Garber is known as a comeback kid.
Hey, go watch his last two big games. Okay, that'll do it for
Oh.
that'll do it for this episode of the 415ers podcast. Marc Grandi, Evan Giddings with you as always. Mark, we'll be talking to our listeners on Monday after the game, of course, between the Niners and the Raiders. But I encourage you to have a safe and festive New Year's Eve. To everyone out there, please drive safe. Please drink responsibly. It's not just your holiday you could mess up. It is other people's as well. So, Mark, I'll be talking to you this weekend.
Yes, sir. Sounds good, Evan. Looking forward to it. Have a good one.
All right, everybody, take it easy. You've been listening to another episode of the 415ers podcast on the Odyssey Sports Podcast Network.